Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show. Now today's episode here in late 2025 and beyond is getting harder and harder to come by credit card and bank promotion approvals, which has some reverting to the old strategy of going in branch to try to slip around. But we'll talk about what that means, how the strategy works, what you can really expect from doing this, what we actually mean. Of course, my experience as of late doing a few in branch applications as well. So of course, if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. So if you've been playing this bank promotion and credit card game for a while, it's not an uncommon thing for folks to say, hey, if you think you're going to have a hard time getting approved, maybe you want to go in branch and apply. But what does that really mean? Because I've seen some comments, especially on Run on the Bank, our second channel, we deal with primarily bank promotions, where folks are like, I got denied in branch and the banker just looked at me. So I want to kind of set the record straight of what you can actually expect. So we'll do credit cards and we'll do bank promotions, but they kind of work very similar. So with credit cards, generally what they mean is you say go in branch to apply. The gist of it is, one, that a bank branch is a sales floor, so you may have people who are a little bit more motivated to help out. But again, there's only so much that they can do. You're going through the same automated underwriting process you would be if you're applying at home. Now, sometimes the banker can help out a little bit, and we'll talk about that. But really, the move is generally known as open a checking account and then open a credit card at the same time. And I've seen this on a few screens as I've sat in bank branches, and you'll be asked this as well. You don't have to see it, but generally a checking account is usually how they get you in the door, and then they'll have a credit card, or on occasion it'll be reversed, like the Sapphire Preferred years ago when I did it was an in-branch only offer. But they have you, a customer, right there going through the process already. They have all your information, so it's not uncommon for them to say, hey, would you like this credit card? It just happened to me at Key Bank, for example, twice on a business and a personal account. We'll talk about that in a second. And that's the gist of it. And we know that on denial letters, they can definitely cite not enough banking relationship with us, not enough deposit balance, which is all saying you haven't given us enough money or worked with us long enough for us to want to approve you for a card. But because they're like companion products, if you're sitting there in the chair, the computer, might be doing, let's say, I'm going to call it the equivalent of like a soft pull. It doesn't mean they're always going to be a soft pull, but it's like, hey, you're pre-approved, pre-qualified for this because you're sitting here, because we have your information, because we can tell based on that. And that's really, that's where it started at. It's not that going in branch can get you around certain denials. Like going in branch isn't going to get you around a 524 denial or something like that, because again, it's the same underwriting criteria. Now, fringe cases where it can help, example, so again, I was in Key Bank due to the business checking account they had, and they also had a business credit card. And the banker really didn't think I was going to get approved. She can't say that, but you can tell because she knew what I was doing, and we talked about it, how many cards I had and everything. And so there was a free text field on her application where she put in there like, hey, customer is looking for a credit card to pay daily business expenses with, phone, internet, primary income comes from her real job. I'm paraphrasing, but the concern being, one, how many cards I had, and number two, that we use my business income of the LLC, which is very low, 15, 20,000, something like that, hence having a real job. And, those applications go to back office with small regional banks. So it's entirely possible that an underwriter took a look at that and was like, yeah, okay, cool. You met with the branch manager. This is it. And they gave me like $1,000 credit limit, which is fine because that's all I needed to hit the offer with. So you can have things like that. If you were to get denied, they'll have an easier time maybe calling the back office if they so choose. It's entirely possible they just shrug their shoulders. It's fair. Sometimes they could maybe help you out with questions, like how long has your business been in business? It's like anything more than a year. They're telling you to put anything more than a year. So you can see some things like that. That's entirely dependent on the banker themselves. Again, not every branch is driven by sales metrics and sales goals. Most are, but just from what I understand, you're not making a ton of money, a ton of commission on credit card sales and things like that. Some bankers generally just want to help customers. I've been honest with most of the bankers. I'm just here for the promotional offer, and they've never really been upset about that for the most part. But going in branch isn't really like this magical skip ahead thing. Does it help? Yeah, I do believe it can help in the scenarios we laid out, the checking account, and especially stumbling upon those pre-approved offers. Another one at Key Bank, I'm not, pre-approved might not be the right word, but those easy layup offers, if you will. A Key Bank, on the personal side, I opened a personal account. They locked me out of my account because they thought I was fraudulent, said you need to go in branch and present with ID. Fine, so here I am sitting at the banker's desk. Key Bank thinks I'm a fraudulent customer, and the banker, while processing my ID and sending it to the back office, was like, oh, you're proof of the Latitude card. Which is hilarious because the computer is like, oh, you're a fraudster, but you want this card? Now, I didn't have an intro offer, so I didn't do it. And even then, that could very well still get declined because of how many inquiries and things I have. It's entirely possible, but you can stumble upon offers like that. So go in branch. I say it a lot more to our younger folks out there who are just getting started, rebuilding maybe, but if you're ever going to go in branch for a personal offer, checking offer, always check the promotional material to see what's out there. It never hurts to bring it up, but not a hardcore cheat code. Not that the banker owes you anything or is necessarily going to go out of their way to do it. Them just saying, oh, hey, you're denied, is entirely possible, and they're entirely justified in doing so because that's what it says. I mean, you think about your own job, like how many times are you really about to go to bat for this person you just met off the street, and so there you have it. Now, on the checking account side, a little bit different because you can get outright denied, and it's usually for checks, which is basically your credit score for deposit products. Or you can get a message that says, come in, we can't verify your ID, come in branch, which is a lie. It's just saying, hey, we see some stuff like all those accounts you opened. I don't know. If you're a real customer, you'll come in branch, and if you're fraudulent, you probably won't make the effort. And either way, it used to be almost a surefire thing that if you got denied for checks or went in branch, you end up getting approved. That is not so much the case anymore. I got denied for Fifth Third online, went in branch, and they got denied for checks as well. And they printed out the adverse action letter right there. I went to another credit union, local one, denied online, got denied in branch. She actually read my checks report to me. She was going through all of them. I was like, hey, look, if it's on the list, it's me. She's like, I'm required to read these to you and get verbal confirmation. The process is the process. And of course, she says, well, let me see what I can do. But I don't, again, I wouldn't expect, especially once they can tell that, what you're up to. And I told her, I was like, no, this is what I do. How much do you really expect someone to go to bat for you like that? It's just really not worth it, especially at a credit union where they're usually not hardcore sales driven like that. There's really not a benefit to the banker. So when the banker looks at you and just kind of shrugs that you got denied, that's reasonable and understandable. Because again, we're all playing the same game of like protect your check, right? And if that's what the computer said, why would I go to bat? They've been doing this long enough to know, really. You can tell by how you talk, the words, how you carry yourself, how you know the products, that kind of thing, unless you're just really trying to play a rookie. Now, if you were at a credit union and you were at a credit union, you were honestly trying to open an account, you just trying to recover from a bad checks report, I do think they'd probably bring in the branch manager to see what they can do for you because credit unions are local, community-based. Banks, zero chance. Well, the computer said no, that's our risk and underwriting department. I'm not going to override that in any way. Now, why it used to work, it still does work, it's just not as effective as it used to be. Well, I think it goes back to we can't verify ID. And so we show up and I've got your ID and I'm looking at you, I can get past it. Because remember, banks care about different things. Like Citi does run checks, but they don't seem to care. They show up on my checks report, but they seem to be looking for, delinquencies, negative account closures and things like that. We're not just so much how many you've opened. At least knock on wood, we don't want them to change next year. As where Fifth Third apparently has changed, like, hey, look, this is too many checks hits. No, right? And again, it is suspicious activity to say the least, but it's no longer just that layup that it used to be. Old National denies in person as well. So, would I still go in, unless you can see a trend in comments of people getting denied in branch, 100% I would go, because Fifth Third was $350, and you're going to be there for an hour, but, find me the thing that you do that makes you $350 in an hour. Like, it doesn't exist for average talentless hacks like myself. So it's still worth the time to go in branch, and at least they'll tell you fairly early on, if you're going to get denied or not. I wouldn't necessarily bring it up unless they bring it up as well. But, it's I have had more denials in person. It's not embarrassing. You just laugh. I'm like, nah, you can keep the adverse action letter. I'm good. Thanks for your time. And then just leave. So that kind of clears up, I think, the in-branch applications. Overall, I don't think it's a waste of time given the upside, how much money is on the table. With credit cards, if I got denied online for a credit card, I'm not going to go try again to apply in branch. Your better move is to call reconsideration. A few places have recon lines, depending how helpful they are. I've got an older video on doing chase reconsideration because sometimes it is something that can easily be sorted out, which, the banker could potentially help you on the application at the front end, but usually we've been doing this long enough to know. If you're in one of those situations, you usually know who you are. Like example, because I have like 3 houses and 2 of them are rentals, like I've got to almost count that income like twice, if not the computer says like, whoa, how are you actually affording this stuff, right? So I've got to make sure to count that in my full income in the same. That's why on business applications it gets tough because anyways, we did sort it out. I don't need to explain the whole thing, but we ended up sorting out through recon, so it can be helpful. But I wouldn't waste that. If I got denied for a personal checking or business checking and the branch was close by, yes, I would still go in branch. If I didn't see any data points saying it doesn't really work, and I would just present as a new customer. If they bring it up, then I was, oh yeah, I got denied, wanted to see if we could do anything about that or something, and go from there. But overall, I hope that does clear things up. If the banker just shrugs at you, don't be surprised. It's just another person doing their job, trying to make it to 5 o'clock and protect their check. Not personal. It's just, there's not really a benefit to go over the algorithm as the sales goals and things like that, or maybe a little bit of a motivator, but I really don't think this day and age they're that much of a motivator given how the Wells Fargo thing played out years ago and all that. They're just not making a ton of money on these applications that from the bankers that I've talked to. It could be different at your shop, and again, let us know down below if it is. But anyways, guys, that's my thoughts on applying in branch. My experience, still worth it, but not the knock out of the park that it used to be. So let me know yours down below if you think all of it's worth it, or what other things are you trying to do to balance out this game. But of course, guys, if you like this one, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel, so we're posting content just like this every single week. We're of course right back here every Sunday with all the news you can use in the week that wasn't credit and finance, and of course every single day over on profitablecontent.com, which is the channel's blog. We have the latest news stories, plenty of bank promotions that you can try your hand at, and of course credit card offers as well. Anyways, guys, that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you very soon in the next one.